At the dawn of the 20th century, the world took one thing for granted. The great European empires ruled, and everyone else followed. Then, in 1905, a rising Asian power did the unthinkable. It defeated one of the largest empires on Earth, on land and at sea, and stunned the entire world. This is the Russo-Japanese War, the moment the old order was put on notice and the map of power began to shift. By 1900, two ambitious empires were pushing toward the same region, the northeastern corner of Asia, rich in ports, land, and influence. Russia, a vast European empire, was expanding eastward, hungry for a warm-water port that would never freeze. Japan, newly modernized and rapidly industrializing, saw the same region as vital to its own security and future. Neither would back down. Talks failed, and in early 1904, Japan struck first, launching a surprise attack on the Russian fleet at Port Arthur. Most of the world expected the giant to win easily. Russia had a huge population, a famous army, and a powerful navy. Japan was small, and to European eyes, an unlikely challenger. That assumption was about to be tested to destruction. The fighting on land was ferocious and shockingly modern. At Port Arthur, Japanese troops laid siege to the heavily fortified Russian base, throwing themselves against machine guns, barbed wire, and entrenched positions. The cost was appalling. Wave after wave of attackers fell in assaults on fortified hills, in scenes that horrified observers. This was a grim preview of the industrial slaughter that would engulf Europe a decade later. The machine gun, the trench, the massed frontal attack. After months of siege, Port Arthur finally fell. Then came an enormous clash of armies around the city of Mukden. Hundreds of thousands of men fought across a vast frozen front in one of the largest land battles the world had yet seen. Japan, at terrible cost, prevailed. But Russia had one last card to play, its powerful Baltic Fleet. The order came to sail this fleet from the far side of the world, halfway around the globe, to turn the tide. It was an epic, exhausting journey of many months, across 3 oceans, with no friendly ports along much of the way. By the time the fleet finally neared Japan, its crews were worn out and its ships in poor condition. Waiting for them, rested and ready in home waters, was the Japanese Navy under its brilliant commander. The two fleets met in the narrow Strait of Tsushima. What followed was one of the most decisive naval battles in all of history. In a matter of hours, the trap closed. Using superior gunnery, speed, and tactics, the Japanese fleet crossed in front of the Russian line and poured fire into it. The result was almost total. The Russian fleet, the one that had sailed around the world, was virtually annihilated. It was a catastrophe without modern precedent. A European great powers fleet destroyed by an Asian navy in a single overwhelming battle. With its navy gone and its armies exhausted, Russia had no choice but to seek peace. The war was ended by a treaty mediated on the other side of the world that recognized Japan's victory. The effects were enormous. For the first time in the modern age, an Asian nation had defeated a European empire in a full-scale war. Across the world, peoples living under empire took note. If the giants could be beaten, then the old order was not as permanent as it seemed. Inside Russia, the humiliation of defeat helped ignite unrest and revolution, shaking the empire to its foundations. And military leaders everywhere studied the war's brutal lessons: the machine gun, the trench, the doomed frontal assault, even as they failed to truly learn them in time. The Russo-Japanese War was more than a regional conflict. It was a hinge of history, the moment the 20th century's great upheavals began to take shape. A rising power had humbled an empire, and the world would never look quite the same again. Yet the machine guns, trenches, and alliances glimpsed here were only a rehearsal. Within a decade, A single assassination would set them loose across an entire continent and drag the whole world into the first truly global war. But that is a story for another time. If you made it this far, subscribe, and we'll keep decoding the wars that shaped our world.